Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to a modern RPG. Because the winner of the poll this week, with a massive 40% of the poll, was Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which only came out in 2019, so it's a very new game indeed. But we'll talk about that when we go to the desktop. Now, the massive lead that Wasteland Warfare had led to a three-way tie for the loser position. So, Unknown Armies, Denver City of Shadows, and GURPS China all tied on 14%. So I kind of thought GURPS would go out, or maybe Unknown Armies, because it's been polling pretty badly the last few weeks. But all of them tie, so I'm not dropping any of them. So only one replacement this week, so Fallout Wasteland Warfare goes out, and is replaced by Strange Aeons, a Call of Cthulhu sourcebook, which offers some alternate history, different backgrounds for Call of Cthulhu. So you can take investigation of the mythos into the Dark Ages or into near future. There's various settings, and I really like that sourcebook, but we'll see how it does, because Call of Cthulhu doesn't generally do very well in these polls. But we shall see. Anyway, let's go over to the desktop and have a look at Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So, this is Fallout Wasteland Warfare role-playing game, tabletop storytelling in the Wasteland, and it's by Modiphius. Now, like most Modiphius games, I won't say all because I don't know all of their games, but like most of them, it uses special dice, rather than your standard D20s, D6s, etc. Now, I don't have the special dice for this. There's a nice picture of them further on, so I'll point them out. But they are fairly similar to these, which are for the Star Wars role-playing game. And as you can see, there's various sided dice. We've got D6s, D8s, D12s here. And they have various symbols on them. So we have, I believe these are called thorns, and there's Sith symbols, and there's Jedi symbols, and there's hits. And you roll these, and depending on how many of the different things you get is how well you do. So if you get a hit, then that increases damage, for example, in combat. Whereas if you get a Jedi symbol and a hit, well, the Jedi symbol can lead to extra effects, because these are more storytelling-based games. But that's the kind of dice we're dealing with. As I said, there's a picture further in. Now, this is supposedly a standalone role-playing game, but I would like to say it barely is. This is a rules expansion for the Wasteland Warfare skirmish tabletop type game, which allows you to take it into role-playing, but it lacks so much information. Now, I don't regret getting this. I managed to pick it up on eBay fairly cheap. I saw it come up on a listing, and it was way less than the cover price, was still in cellophane, so I had no problem spending my money and having a look, and I do not regret that decision. However, the chances of me running this game are very, very light. Let's have a look at the back cover anyway. So, Fallout Wasteland Warfare. War. War never changes. I'm sorry, I can't say it with the same gravitas that they do in the games. In the ashes of civilization, warring factions struggle against horrific creatures, irradiated wastes, and human nature itself. Make your way in this hostile world towards the ultimate goal, survival. The Fallout Wasteland Warfare role-playing game brings all the excitement and adventure of the war game to tabletop role-playing. Explore the world of Fallout from sea to glowing sea, encountering factions, settings, and settlements from your favourite Fallout experiences. Your group will make choices that can change the balance of power in the wasteland, winning you allies or creating bitter enemies the world over. Threats await in every blasted street and broken wood. The vaults are opening. The Brotherhood of Steel are on the march. The Enclave stamp their jackboots, observed from the ruined buildings by lurking Institute synths. Raiders twitch and slash their way along overgrown streets that echo with the roars of supermutants. Mutated beasts hiss and stab from their burrows, slinking back from the shadows of prowling deathclaws. The only hope in making it through to survive and thrive with your group of companions at your side, fighting to shape this world, for better or worse. Forge a path through the wasteland, discover your own stories in the world of Fallout, standalone RPG expansion designed to work with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, guidelines for new and experienced GMs alike, examples of how to run adventures, advice on creating scenarios and campaigns. Character-focused narrative card system lets you use all Fallout Wasteland Warfare cards and items with interchangeable character mats for massive player choice and mutability. An introductory campaigns, Parsifal and the Wasteland Knights, to get players acclimated to the rules, and World of Fallout and its denizens. Requires Fallout Wasteland Warfare dice to play, sold separately. By Modiphius and Bethesda. And that kind of details what it is, because this claims to be standalone, but you really need the Wasteland Warfare because it's providing much of the bestiary of monsters you're going to fight. It fleshes out everything. But let's start having a flick through. So, it's very nicely published and bound. You wouldn't expect any less from Modiphius. We've got a large list here of who's involved, including editing by Mike Brunton, who's a British publisher who was involved a lot with the Games Workshop stuff. I've covered a number of things he's been involved with in the past. Now, much of the artwork in this is pictures of miniatures, because they're trying to sell you on the miniatures from the tabletop wargame. So, what is a role-playing game? What you need? Standard introduction stuff. The world of the Wasteland. So, it explains a bit about the Wasteland and areas. Well, the thing I notice in this is it tends to miss out some of the things which are very, very important to the Fallout setting. It barely touches on vaults. The life inside them, because most people will want to play as vault dwellers emerging into the world and knowing very little about it. It's the standard role-playing setting where your characters know nothing about the outside world because they've been raised in this weird place. And the vaults in Fallout especially, given that apart from the few control vaults, which are actually built to allow people to survive the nuclear holocaust, they were experiments. You know, there's lots of weird vaults where, you know, drug addicts were put in a vault and then the drugs were released a year into their time to see who would fall back into old habits. There is one where everybody had access to guns, so you could see what would happen if the power wasn't in the hands of authority, if everybody had equal power. Now, as I said, the artwork's mainly pictures of miniatures, because that's what they're trying to sell you here. Automatons of the Wasteland. Survivors. Surviving together. Notable settlements. And it's just brief touches on here. You know, one paragraph on Megaton. The Brotherhood of Steel. We've got Raiders and Raider Tactics. We've got Super Mutants. The Enclave. The Institute. We're covering games and games full of background and details here in like a single page. There's not much information here at all. Creating a character. So, how to split up your attributes, because it uses the special attributes out of the Fallout games. So, strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. Special. And you set your attributes with those. Luck basically allowing you to re-roll stuff later on. It doesn't tend to take part in gameplay except when you attempt to do something again. So you miss, you can try your luck and see if you actually did hit. You can try your luck to do extra damage. So we go through the creating a player character section. The character mat, or a character sheet, what most people would call it. We have a section here on ghouls. Now, being able to play as a ghoul is not something you've really had in the video games, but ghouls are a large section of the Fallout universe. They are people who received radiation poisoning, but mutated to survive it. So they are rotting corpses, but the radiation stops them rotting too fast, and they live for centuries. However, eventually pieces of their brain rot, and they become feral ghouls, and dangerous. So you can play somebody who's been around since the nuclear holocaust, who's still a normal operational person, but they can be they are hated because any day their brain can rot that stage too much, and they can go monstrous and start eating people. And that's the entire section. It tells you that you get a feat, the lead belly perk, and your radiation armor is set to X, granting you immunity, and you're disliked. You know, there's a lot of background there and only one paragraph. It barely touches on stuff. Expertise skills. So we go through all the skills section here. Gifts and scars. So your extra abilities and your disadvantages. Advantages and disadvantages. We've got perks, which are basically feats out of Dungeons & Dragons. Allows you to do something a bit extra. And these are heavily based around the fancy dice. So when you roll a certain type of dice, you get an effect beyond normal skill rolls. We've got specialist characters, so leaders, members of factions. And then it really goes into detail about the luck attribute. Experience and progression. And then we've got archetype cards. So these are your basic archetypes. So if you want to play a bandit, that's what you're starting with. There's not a lot of information there. These are mainly characters for a war game, which are receiving a bit of padding out to be a role-playing character. So you choose what kind of character you want to play. And that's them there. There's not really any background on them. They're not detailed. They are very basic sketches of what attributes you should have. So you can play a heavy super mutant. You can play a sniper. Or you can go back a few pages and make him a Ghoul sniper. Then on to the rules of play. So how skill tests work. How the different dice work. And there's an image of the fancy dice. They've got sort of broken helmets to show reduce armor resistance. What else have we got? The symbols. Extra damage impacts, bonus to skill, special effects. So I'm not sure you could use the Star Wars dice. These look to have more symbols on them. As well as there appears to be a D20 there. They really want you to buy their special dice. We've got penalties and bonuses, opposed skill tests, just going through all the parts of standard role-playing. Because we do have rules here for role-playing, even though everything else is just so hastily sketched over. We've got special effects. Sample special effect activations. Spend 1 blast point to cause stun. Spend 2 Nuka-Cola bottle icons to set target on fire. Spend 1 Nuka-Cola bottle icon plus 1 star icon to cause 1 extra damage. And so on and so forth. Then we've got action play. Going through your different types of actions. We've got moves, we've got charging, we've got shooting, we've got throwing, we've got close combat, we've got use expertise, we've got prepare. So, different types of actions your character can play. Because, as I said, this is a war game. So, it's not completely up to your imagination. This is just detailing a few things you can do. Special maneuvers you do in combat. We've got Vats here. Some characters have Vats, Vault-Tec assisted targeting system. Yeah, because in the games, you've got your Pip-Boy, your arm-mounted computer. Is that mentioned anywhere in here? Well, I've only really opened the book a day ago and been looking through it for the last 24 hours, but I cannot find a mention of a Pip-Boy in here at all. It doesn't seem to be really in the equipment list. It doesn't mention that Vault Dwellers have it, that these devices are kind of embedded into the universe. Your Pip-Boy helps unlock vaults. Your Pip-Boy can't be removed from your corpse, because if it is, it breaks. So only Vault Dwellers have Pip-Boys, even when they go out into the wastelands and get killed. What else we got? We've got damage. We've got how armor works and how health works. How criticals work, your different conditions. We've got advanced combat and weapons, so area effects and heavy weapons. Then we've got items, which really detail down what things do. So you've got alcohol, armor, chems, clothing, food and drink, gear, junk, mods, power armor, and weapons. Instead of having a list of everything available in the world, they're really broken down here. So, diminishing effects, addiction, healing items. We've got power armor here. What else we got? Mods, repair, encumbrance. Different types of fixed defenses. Weapon breakages and jams. So if you roll a complication, your weapon jams. The Overseer, which is the Games Master. Now, I appreciate them using a term out of the universe for Games Master. Lots of games do. They choose for your Games Master, your Dungeon Master, some fancy term. But given if you're in a vault, there will be an Overseer. And the Games Master is called an Overseer. I can see grounds here for confusion. So I think it's a bit of a silly choice. They should have just called it a Gamemaster. But that's their choice to make. Adjudicating skill tests. Other adjudications, just how the Gamemaster makes decisions. Non-player characters. The covert approach, how to handle stealth. We've got chase scenes, which is a very nice one because it details a chase scene into different things. You know, so something gets pushed out in the way, so they have to roll acrobatics to jump over it to catch up with the opponent. If they fail, they gain distance. If they succeed, they gain distance. If they fail, they lose distance. Then they see a group of people and they have to make a presence check to convince the people to move out of their way, gaining distance or losing distance. You know, rather than just making successive run rolls to see who makes ground, it does suggest in making a chase more interesting with different obstacles that the characters have to try different skills to overcome. Really nice idea. We've got scavenging, which I thought would be a much larger part of a Fallout game, because you're in a nuclear holocaust. You are scavenging from the ruins of the old world. But there's not much there. We're on to items and costs. So, is there a Pip-Boy? Can I find one amongst everything? No, there's no Pip-Boy in there. Unless you can see one. But something so big isn't even on the equipment list. We've got how settlements are. Very useful information, you know, how they get their food supply, whether they've got water pumps, workstations, how they recruit people. We've got a crafting system for improving items and repairing items. But wear and tear is in a boxed out area here, that basically you roll a damage dice when an item's been used a significant amount, and if you roll damage then the item breaks and needs repaired. But that's an alternate rule. And I really would have thought in a Fallout role-playing game that that would be kind of key, because everything's old. You need to repair it and patch it up from the ruins of the old world. But no, everything lasts forever unless your Gamemaster decides, yeah, you've used that too much, roll a damage dice. Yep, it's broken. Very arbitrary. Not keen on that. Reference special effect dice. Playing in conjunction with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which seems an odd one because, let's be honest, this is just an expansion for Wasteland Warfare to add some role-playing elements. And we've got the campaign, Parzival and the Wasteland Knights. So I won't spend too much time going through that, but we have different scenes, detailing out maps, giving a nice little introductory adventure and campaign to get your players going. We've got Diamond City out of Fallout 4 there, the security guards, the Minutemen, Ghoul settlers, just detailing through how to get started. Now, overseer note. The cards are quite useful in this aspect for creating NPCs, although if you were printing something out and those were on there and you could mark off as people are damaged or whatever, that'd be far more useful. You are extremely unlikely to mark your character, your rulebook in any useful fashion. But we've got lots of the cards for NPCs during skirmishes. Obviously a note. Part 3, Camelot. Just going through an adventure, an introduction, the conclusion, and then we have a few pages of miniatures galleries. Now, given how little we had on background, how we skipped over what life is like in the vaults, this massive part, which should be really included, we then get 8 pages of pictures of miniatures, because that's what they want to sell you. You want you to go out and buy these miniatures and paint them up. And we've got index of icons throughout the book, which means the book's not that easy to read until you learn these. And we've got an index, and I'm not going to turn over the final page because it's got my key code for my free PDF copy, and I'm afraid I want to grab that at some point rather than let one of you steal it. So that is Fallout Wasteland Warfare. it's not a great role-playing game. It does pay homage to the computer game it's based on, but it is so light on information. I'm not impressed at all. I'm happy that I bought it at less than the price you would normally pay for it. It's got some interesting ideas in there, and it's done some things really well. But as a role-playing game, I find it a big letdown. You know, what was that, 100 and something pages? Oh, 137 pages. That is not enough for a role-playing game detailing a world as heavily used and already detailed in the computer games. You know, it would be nice if they'd gone through the computer games and detailed what happened in them and included some stuff from that to build up the history and give people ideas for what they would do. This is really based around people who know Fallout already and just want some rules. But anyway, I've whittled on for quite long enough. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment below, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.